Alrighty, so today we're going to do the season preview of Nashville SC. So obviously, we knew coming into this offseason, Nashville desperately needed some attacking help for Hany Mukhtar. And in some way, they kind of did some of that, as we'll talk about some of the transfer that they have made. But nevertheless, this is definitely a team that is looking to try to make sure they get past the first round because for the past couple of years, they have suffered some playoff futility and is also another team that, just like Orlando City, have yet to get past round number two. So last season, they finished with 13, 10, and 11 record and finished with 49 points. Really, last year was a season that ends in three parts. I mean, the first part was relatively good in the beginning of the season, and then the second part was their League Cup final run. And then the third part was pretty much the collapse. After losing in that League Cup final against Inter Miami, they basically never recovered to a point where they were still good enough to make it to the playoffs, but they were dead man walking once they were in the playoffs and lost in the first round as a result. The last playoff appearance was in 2023, as we saw last season. But the last time they won a playoff round, it's been a couple years since they last won a playoff round. 2021, that is. And for a team that have yet to miss out on the playoffs and remain the only team right now to not miss out of the playoffs. Well, I know technically St. Louis City has never missed out on their playoffs, but they only won 1 year, so I don't know if that's even more impressive than what we see with Nashville. Been in the league for now free season, and yet they, or actually not even free season, fourth season. They've been in the league in three years since 2020, and they have made the playoffs every single year. But unfortunately, the last time they taste playoff success in terms of a win is back in 2021, and obviously with them coming into the league in 2020, they have never won the MLS Cup. Although when they made that magical run in their expansion season, it looked like there was a lot of people, including myself, might think that they were going to do something improbable. They were going to do something that only the Chicago Fire did back in '98, which is becoming the first expansion team to win an MLS Cup since the '98 Chicago Fire did, and remain the only expansion team to win their MLS Cup in their inaugural year. Now, in terms of players that they've got, and this is of course where I talk about the reinforcement on the attacking end. They got Tyler Boyd and Drew Yearwood. Tyler Boyd obviously is a big get for them because his work rate is very incredible when he is with the Galaxy, and they kind of need a guy like that. I mean, I know technically they have Jacob Schaffelberg, but getting a guy like Tyler Boyd on the other side will really help out in terms of their winger position. And not to mention, he's also a guy that knows to score a couple of bangers kind of goals, so that of course would help now. And then Drew Yearwood, just kind of continue of Nashville, just always have that fantasy of basically getting New York Red Bulls player. I mean, they've traded a lot of players from the New York Red Bulls and a lot of former Red Bulls player that of course plays for Nashville, but obviously we know that the real replacement for Drew Yearwood is Dax McCarty, who of course is no longer here, and that we'll see whether or not if that's going to work out because that's definitely a big shoes to fill in terms of the spot that Dax McCarty left this team. But in the draft, they got Wyatt Meyer and Foster Arugo, and then of course they also got Mackenzie Gaines, who is a guy that again, if you want to talk about a guy that never really lived up the hype that he has during his time with Austin, Mackenzie Gaines is an example of it, and this maybe could be his last shot in terms of staying relevant and getting a shot with an MLS team. Now, in terms of players that left this team, you got Fafa Pico, who of course I believe he went to. Did he went to Vancouver? Yeah, he went to the Vancouver Whitecaps. Then you got Luke Hogginson, Lawrence White, Ethan Zubak, Nero Perry, but most importantly, Dax McCarty, of course, no longer with this team. He joined Atlanta United, and then you got Nick DePuy, Tyler Freeman, and Liam to fin- finish up the list of outs and players that no longer with Nashville and departed this offseason. Now, in terms of their preseason schedule, so they're already halfway into their preseason schedule, and so far, they're undefeated in the preseason. They got a 2-2 draw against St. Louis, and then they got a 2-1 win against Sporting KC, and then on February 2nd in their next game, which is actually tomorrow, they're going to be playing against Toronto FC, and that's tomorrow at the time of this recording. If you're watching this on February 2nd, good chances that this game is already over. Then they of course play against Birmingham Legion, and then they finish the preseason against Memphis 901. And then they're in the CONCACAF Champions Cup for the first time. And in leg one, they play this team called Mocha on the road before on leg number two, which is on February 28th. They, of course, will be playing at home against that same team that is named Mocha. Now, in terms of their first 10 game of the season, they started the season against the New York Red Bulls before going on the road to play against the Colorado Rapids. Then they got a home date with the LA Galaxy, so they got a couple of Western Conference foes that they're going to be facing early in the season. In fact, they do face a couple of more Western Conference team, and I think like what four of the six Western Conference teams that they're going to be facing is within the first 10 games. But after that, they of course play against Charlotte at home, and then they go on the road to play against LAFC, and this is where the schedule gets tough for Nashville because you're going on the road to play against LAFC, but then you come home and you face the other team that went to MLS Cup and is the defending MLS Cup champion, that is the Columbus Crew. And then you got another tough game against the Philadelphia Union at home before you get to play Messi and friends against Inter Miami around that. So that's going to be an interesting stretch to see how they will do well. I mean, I'm assuming they could do well during that stretch because Nashville is a team that at least for last season it feels like they fixed their home form and that their home form was much better compared to when Geodis Park was first open. And then they of course finished that tough stretch with them playing against the San Jose Earthquakes, which that should be a win because knowing that the Quakes they probably won't win that one. And then they finish here's their first 10 games against Montreal on May 4th. Now, in terms of post Leeds Cup, this of course is where Nashville was doomed last season, and they're hoping to not have a repeat of that. And they definitely have a mixture of tough and easy game. They get to play against Austin FC coming out of the Leeds Cup, but then they got a tough game going on the road to play against Orlando, and then going on the road to play against Atlanta. So two Southeastern folks that they're going to be facing against each facing on the road. But then they play at home against Chicago before playing at home against FC Cincinnati. Then they go on the road to play against the New England Revolution, and then they return home to play DC United. But they have to go on the road to play NYCFC and the Chicago Fire. So again, on the seeing things, you might say that could be a tough schedule because 3 out of their last 4 games to finish the season is on the road, and there's going to be a lot more road games to finish off the season compared to when they're playing at home. But again, this is where Nashville is hoping that they will be wrapping up their chances of making the playoffs by then, or they could have a chance to face against these good team and really maybe send a message that they can hang with the best of the East. Because I really think that, as I mentioned, but before with a lot of these good teams that is in the Eastern Conference, Nashville is going to be one of those teams where on paper you could say that they could hang with some of the best team. I mean, if Hany Mukhtar go nuclear, then yes, they can hang with some of their best team. And not to mention, in terms of the strength of this team, is definitely going to be on the defensive end. Again, Walker Zimmerman is still there. Jack Mayer is still there, and then of course Joe Willis is still there. And those three guys are key in terms of why the defense are really good for this Nashville team. And defense, by the way, it's been a strength for this team since they came into the league. Every single season, they've always been very locked down in the defensive front. So that's going to be a thing that I think Nashville fans won't be too worried about. What they are worried about is the goal scoring. And again, this is where I go back to what I said, how yes, they have got some reinforcement with the likes of Tyler Boyd and Drew Yearwood, but you just feel like they're still missing that lethal goal scored. And again, this is also where I feel like Nashville is kind of in that same situation that New England found themselves, where I mentioned New England desperately needed a number 9, but it seems like they're putting all the trust in Veroni to be that number 9 to score the goals. Well, for Nashville, they're putting all their trust on Sam Surridge and hope that he can rediscover that Leeds Cup form that he has heading into the season, because what he did in the Leagues Cup was everything what Nashville was hoping that they've been looking for so long, of finding that number 9. But unfortunately, after the Leagues Cup is over, that's when he really struggled. And besides that hat trick that he had in one of the game, he didn't really score any goals whatsoever. So they're really putting trust that Sam Surridge is that guy to be the lethal goal scorer, because if that's not the case, then there is a huge question of the fact that they don't have a lethal goal scorer not named Hany Mukhtar. I mean, Hany Mukhtar is going to carry most of the way. But the fact that they don't have a lot of those goals scored, and as I mentioned with Tyler Boyd, he's a guy that provides some good work rate and also provides some attacking spark. But he's definitely not a guy that is a considered to be a lethal goal scored, and that's going to be something that we're going to once again see with this Nashville team. And don't be surprised if Nashville are going to have a lot of these 1-0 or 2-1 kind of victory, because that's kind of the thing that Garrett Smith likes to do. You want to keep it tight and keep it low score. But in terms of the expectation of this team, obviously the big expectation for this team is to make it to the playoffs again, but also win a playoff round or two. You do not want to be compared to the New York Red Bulls in terms of some of them making the playoffs regularly and then find ways to not advance through the playoffs. And I know that Nashville still have a long way to go in terms of reaching New York Red Bull status of making the playoffs every single season, but fall short in the early round. But I mean, a couple more season if Nashville keep getting stuck in this mode of them not winning a playoff round or two, then you could say that there's definitely some problem, and that there's even talks about the core that they have currently. Is this core good enough in terms of getting them deep into the playoffs? And that's a huge question, because especially with the way how good the East is. I mean, this is kind of where they wish that they're still in the Western Conference right now. I mean, if they were still in the Western Conference right now, I would say that this team hands down has a chance to contend for MLS Cup. But because they're in the East now, and because there's so many good team in the East compared to this team, that yes, they have a superstar named Hany Mukhtar, but after that, there's a lot of question mark on the attacking end. I don't think they're good enough in terms of making a deep run. But we shall see if that is the case, and that we'll see also whether or not if they can magically make another Leeds Cup run like they did last season. I mean, hey, they made it all the way to the final and they almost upset Inter Miami. Let's see what they'll do in this year edition of the Leeds Cup, and also hope that that will maybe even translate into the playoffs, where they'll shock the world and go deep into the playoffs and survive the bloodbath that we will see in the Eastern Conference for this upcoming season. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys like, smash the subscribe button. As if you're a Nashville fan, so let me know in the comments below what do you think is the strength, the weakness, and expectation is for this team. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.